Chapter 18 Dobby's Reward. For moments there was a silence as Harry, Ron, and Ginny and Lockhart stood in the doorway, covered in muck and slimed, and in Harry's cases, blood. There was a scream. Ginny! Oh, it was Mrs. Weasley, had been sitting crying in front of the fire. She leapt to her feet, closely followed by Mr. Weasley, and both of them flung themselves on their daughter, who, however, was looking past them. Professor Dumbledore was standing by the mantelpiece, beaming, next to Professor McGonagall, who was talking great, steadying grabs. Clutching her chest, Fawkes went wishing past Harry's ears and settled on Dumbledore's shoulder, just as Harry found himself, and Ron being swept into Mrs. Weasley's tight embrace. You saved her! You saved her! How did you do it? I think we'd all like to know that, said Professor McGonagall weakly. Mrs. Weasley let go of Harry, who hesitated for a moment, then walked over to the desk and laid it upon the sorting hat, the ruby-encrusted sword, and then at what remained Riddle diary, and then he started telling them everything. For nearly a quarter of an hour he spoke into rapt silence. Told them about hearing the disembodied voices, and how Hermione had finally realized that he was hearing a basilisk in the pipe. How he and Ron had followed the spider into the forest, that Aragog had told them where the last victim of the basilisk and died. Well, had died, and how he had guessed that Moaning Myrtle had been the victim, and that the entrance to the Chamber Secret might be in her bathroom. Very well, Professor McGonagall prompted him, as he paused. So you found out where the entrance was, breaking 100 school rules into pieces along the way, I might add. But how on earth did you get all out there alive, Porter? So Harry, his voice now growing hoarse from all this talking, told them about Fawkes' timely arrival and about the sorting hat giving him the sword. But then he has so far avoided mentioning Riddle Diary or Ginny. She was standing with her head against Mrs. Weasley's shoulder, and tears were still coursing silently down her cheek. What if they spelled her? Harry thought in panic. Riddle Diary didn't work any more. How could they prove it? It had been who had made it to her to do it all. Instinctively, Harry looked at Dumbledore, who smiled faintly, the firelight glancing off his Halloween spectacle. What interests me the most, said Dumbledore gently, is how Lord Voldemort managed to enchant here, Ginny, when my source telling me he is currently in hiding the force of Albania. Relief, warm, sweeping loose relief swept over Harry. What? Said Mr. Weasley in a stunned voice. You know who? An enchanted Ginny? But Ginny hasn't been, has she? It was this diary, said Harry quickly, picking it up and showing it was to Dumbledore. Riddle wrote them when he was 16. Dumbledore took the diary from Harry and peered keenly down his long, crooked nose at its burnt, soggy page. Brilliant, he said softly. Of course, he was probably the most brilliant student Hogwarts has ever seen. He turned around to Weasley, who was looking early bewildered. Very few people know that Lord Voldemort was once called Tom Riddle, and I taught him myself 50 years ago at Hogwarts. He sank so deeply into the dark art, consorted with the very worst of our kind, underwent so many dangerous magical transformations, and when he resurfaced as Lord Voldemort he was barely recognizable. Hardly anyone connected Lord Voldemort with the clever, handsome boy who was once head boy here. But Ginny, said Mrs. Weasley, what's our Ginny got to do with him? His diary, Ginny sobbed. I've been writing in it, and he's been writing back all years. Ginny, said Mr. Weasley, flabbergasted, haven't I told you anything? What have I always told you? Never trust anything what can think for itself if you can't see where it kept the brains. Why didn't you show the diary to me or your mother, or a suspicious object like that? It was clearly full of dark magic. I didn't know, sobbed Ginny. I found it inside one of the books Mom got me. I thought someone just left it in there and forgot about it. Miss Weasley should go out to the hospital wing straight away, Dumbledore interrupted in a firm voice. This had been a terrible or, ordeal for her. There will be no punishment. Older and wiser wizard and than she had been hoodwinked by Lord Voldemort. He strode over to the door and opened it. Bed rest and perhaps a large steaming mug of hot chocolate. I always find that cheers me up, he added, twinkling kindly down at her. You'll find that Madame Pomfrey is still awake. She's just giving up mandrake juice. I dare say the basilisk victim will be waking up any moment. So Hermione's okay, said Ron brightly. There's been no lasting harm done, said Dumbledore. Mrs. Weasley led Ginny out, and Mr. Weasley followed, still looking deeply shaken. You know, Miniver, Professor Dumbledore had said thoughtfully to Professor McGonagall, I think all this mirrors a good feast. Might I ask you to go and lord the kitchen? Right, said Professor McGonagall crisply, also moving to the door. I'll leave you to deal with Porter and Weasley, shall I? Certainly, said Dumbledore. She left, and Harry and Ron gazed uncertainly at Dumbledore. What exactly had Professor McGonagall meant? Deal with them. Surely. They weren't about to be punished. I seem to remember telling you both that I would have expelled you if you broke any more school rules, said Dumbledore. Ron opened his mouth in horror. Which goes that the best of us must sometime eat our words, Dumbledore went on, smiling. You'll both receive special award for service to school, and let me see. Yes, I think 200 points apiece for Gryffindor. Ron went as brightly pink as Lockhart Valentine flower and closed his mouth again. But one of us seemed to be keeping mightily quiet about his partner's dangerous adventure. Dumbledore added, Why so modest, Gilderoy? Harry gave a start. He'd completely forgotten about Lockhart. He turned and saw that Lockhart was standing in the corner of a room, still wearing his vague smile. When Dumbledore addressed him, Lockhart looked over his shoulder to see who he was talking about. Professor Dumbledore, Ron said quickly. There was an accident down the Chamber of Secrets. Professor Lockhart, am I a professor? Said Lockhart in a mild surprise. Goodness, I expect it was hopeless, was I? He tried to do a memory charm and the wand backfired, Ron explained quietly to Dumbledore. Dear me, said Dumbledore, shaking his head, his long silver moustache quivering, appealed about in his own word, Gilderoy. His own sword, Gilderoy. Sword? Said Lockhart dimly. Haven't I got a sword? That boy has, though. He pointed at Harry. He'll lend you one. Would you mind taking Professor Lockhart up to the hospital wing? Too, Dumbledore said to Ron. I'd like a few more words with Harry. Lockhart ambled out. Ron cast a curious look back at Dumbledore and Harry as he closed the door. Dumbledore crossed on one of the chair by the fire. Sit down, Harry, he said, and Harry sat, feeling unaccountably nervous. First of all, Harry, I want to thank you, said Dumbledore, eyes twinkling again. You must have shown me real loyalty down the chamber. Nothing but that could have called Fawkes to you. He stroked the phoenix, which had fluttered down onto his knee. Harry grinned awkwardly as Dumbledore watched him. And so you have met Tom Riddle. Someone said Dumbledore thoughtfully. I imagine he was most interested in you. Suddenly, something was nagging at Harry to come tumbling out of his mouth. Professor Dumbledore, Riddle said I'm like him. Strange likeness. He said, did he now? Said Dumbledore, looking thoughtfully under his thick silver eyes brown at Harry. And what do you think, Harry? I don't think I'm like him, said Harry, more loudly than he intended. I mean, I'm in Gryffindor. He fell silent, a lurking doubt reversing in his mind. Professor, he said again after a moment, the Sorting Hat told me I'll have done well in Slytherin. Everyone thought I was Slytherin here for a while because I can speak Persian tongue. You can speak Persian tongue, Harry, said Dumbledore calmly, because Lord Voldemort, who is the last remaining descendant of Salazar Slytherin, can speak Persian tongue. Unless I'm much mistaken, he transferred some of his own power to you the night he gave you that scar. Not something he intended to do, I'm sure. Voldemort put a bit of himself in me, Harry said, thunderstruck it. It certainly seems so. So I should be in Slytherin, Harry said, looking desperately into Dumbledore's faces. The Sorting Hat could see Slytherin power in me, and it... But you're in Gryffindor, said Dumbledore calmly. Listen to me, Harry, you happen to have a quality Scholars of Slytherin prize as hand-picked student, his own very rare gift personal tongue. Resourcefulness, determination, a certain disregard for rules. He added, his moustache quivering again. Yet the Sorting Hat placed you in Gryffindor. You know why that was. Think. Oh, it only put me in Gryffindor, said Harry in defeat, because I asked not to go in Slytherin. Exactly, said Dumbledore, beaming once more, which makes you very different from Tom Riddle. It is our choice, Harry, that show what we truly are, far more than our abilities. Harry sat motionless in his chair, stunned. If you want proof, Harry, that you belong in Gryffindor, I suggest you look more closely at this. Dumbledore reached across to Professor McGonagall's desk, picked up a blood-stained silver sword, and handed it to Harry. Dully, Harry turned it over, the rubies blazing in the firelight. Then he saw the name engraved just below it, the hilt. Godric Gryffindor. Only a true Gryffindor could have pulled that out of a hat. Harry, said Dumbledore simply. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Dumbledore pulled one out of the door in Professor McGonagall's desk and took out a quill and a bottle of ink. What you need, Harry, is some food and sleep. I suggest you down to the feast while I write to Azkaban. We need our gamekeeper back, and I must draft an advertisement for the Daily Prophet, too, he added thoughtfully. We'll be needing a new defense against dark art teacher. Dear me, we do seem to run through them, don't we? Harry got up and crossed the door. He had just reached for the handle, however, when the door burst open so violently that it bounced back of the wall. Lucius Malfoy stood there, fury in his face, and covering under his arm heavily rabbit bandage was Dobby. Good evening, Lucius, said Dumbledore pleasantly. Mr. Malfoy almost knocked Harry over as he swept into the room. Dobby went scurrying after, crunching on the hem of his cloak. A look of abject terror on his face. So, said Lucius Malfoy, his cold eyes fixed on Dumbledore. You've come back. The governor suspended you, but you still saw fit to return to Hogwarts. Well, you see, Lucius, said Dumbledore, smiling secretly, the other 11 governor contacted me today. It was something like being caught in a hailstorm of owl. To tell the truth, they had heard about all their Weasley daughter had been killed and wanted me here back at once. They seemed to think I was the best man for the job after all. For a strange tale they told me, too. Several of them seemed to be thinking that you had threatened to curse their families if they didn't agree to suspend me in the first place. Mr. Malfoy went even paler than usual, but his eyes were still a fury. So, you have stopped the attack yet? He sneered. Have you caught the culprit? We have. We, said Dumbledore with a smile. Well, said Malfoy sharply. Who is it? The same person as last time, Lucius, said Dumbledore. But this time, Lord Voldemort was acting through somebody else, by means of his diary. Harry held up the small black book with a large hole through the center, watching Mr. Malfoy closely. Harry, however, was watching Dobby. The elf was doing something very odd. His great eyes fixed meaningly at Harry. He kept pointing at the diary, then at Mr. Malfoy, and then hitting himself hard on the head with his fist. I see, said Mr. Malfoy slowly to Dumbledore. A clever plan, said Dumbledore in a level voice, still staring Mr. Malfoy straight in the eyes. Because of Harry here, Mr. Malfoy shot Harry a swift, sharp look, and his friend Ron had discovered this book. Why, Ginny Weasley have taken all the blame. No one ever have been able to prove she had acted on her own free will. Mr. Malfoy said nothing. His face went suddenly mask-like. And imagine, said Dumbledore went on, what might have happened. Then the Weasley are one of our most prominent pure blood families. Imagine the effect on Arthur Weasley and his Muggle Protection Act if his own daughter was discovered attacking and killing Muggleborns. Very fortunate the diary is discovered and real memories wiped from it. Who knows what the consequence might have been otherwise? Mr. Malfoy forced himself to speak. Very fortunate, he said stiffly, and still behind his back. Dobby was pointing first to the diary, then to Lucius Malfoy, and then punching himself in the head. And Harry suddenly understood. He nodded at Dobby, and Dobby back into the corner, now twisting his ear in punishment. Don't you want to know how Ginny got hold of that diary, Mr. Malfoy? Said Harry. Lucius Malfoy ran round on him. How should I know how the stupid little girl got hold of it? He said. Because you gave it to her, said Harry. A flourish and blots. You picked up her old transfiguration book and slipped the diary inside it, didn't you? He saw Mr. Malfoy's white hand clench and unclench it. Prove it, he hissed. Oh, no, no one will be able to do that, said Dumbledore, smiling at Harry. Not now a riddle has vanished from the book. On the other hand, I would advise you, Ned Lucius, not to go giving out any more of Lord Voldemort's old things. If any more of them find their way into the in notes in hand, I think Arthur Weasley, for one, will make sure that they're traced back to you. Lucius Malfoy stood there for a moment, and Harry distinctly saw his right hand twitch as though he was longing to reach for his wand. Instead, he turned out his house elf. We're going, Dobby. He wrenched open the door, and his elf came hurrying up to him. He kicked him right through it. They could hear Dobby squealing with pain all the way along the corridor. Harry stood for a moment, thinking hard. Then it came to him. Professor Dumbledore, said he hurriedly, can I give the diary back to Mr. Malfoy, please? Certainly, Harry, said Dumbledore calmly. But hurry, the feast, remember. Harry grabbed the diary and dashed out of the office. He could hear Dobby's squeal of pain receding around the corner. Quickly, wondering if this plan could possibly work, Harry took off one of his shoes, pulled off his slimy, filthy sock, and stuffed the diary into it. And he ran down the dark corridor. He caught up with him at the top of the upstairs. Mr. Malfoy, he gasped, getting in the hall. I've got something for you. And he forced a smelly sock into Lucius Malfoy's hand. What? Mr. Malfoy ripped the sock of the diary, threw it aside, then looking fiercely from the rune book to Harry. You'll meet the same sticky end as your parents. Sticky end as your parent one of these days, Harry Potter, he said softly. They're meddlesome fools, too. He turned to go. Come, Dobby, I said. Come. But Dobby didn't move. He was holding Harry's disgusting, slimy sock and looking at it as though it was a priceless treasure. Master had given Dobby a sock, said the elf in wonderment. Master gave it to Dobby. What's that? Spat Mr. Malfoy. What did you say? Dobby has got a sock, said Dobby in disbelief. Master threw it, and Dobby caught it, and Dobby is free. Lucius Malfoy stood frozen, staring at the elf. Then he lunged at Harry. You've lost me a servant, boy. But Dobby shouted, You shall not harm Harry Potter. There was a loud bang, and Mr. Malfoy was thrown backward. He crashed down the stair, 3 at a time, landing in a crumbled heap on the landing below. He got up, his face livid, and pulled out his wand, but Dobby raised a long, threatening finger. You shall go now, he said fiercely, pointing down at Mr. Malfoy. You shall not touch Harry Potter. You shall go now. Lucius Malfoy had no choice but the last instant stare at the pair of them. He swung his cloak around him and hurried off his sight. Harry Potter free, Dobby, said Elvin shrilly, gazing on the hairy moonlight from the nearest window reflected in his orb-like eyes. Harry Potter, set Dobby free. Least I could do, Dobby, said Harry, grinning. Just promise never try and save my life again. The elf's ugly brown face split and suddenly to a wide, toothy smile. I've just got one question, Dobby, said Harry, as Dobby pulled on Harry's sock with a shaking hand. You told me all this had nothing to do with he was not being named, remember? Well, it was a clue, sir, said Dobby, his eyes widening as though this was obvious. Dobby was giving you a clue. The Dark Lord, before he changed his name, giving could be freely named. You should. You see? Right, said Harry weakly. Well, I better go. There's a feast, and my friend Hermione would be awake by now. Dobby threw his arm around Harry's middle and hugged him. Harry Potter is greater by far than Dobby knew, he sobbed. Farewell to Harry Potter, and a final loud crack. Dobby disappeared. He had never been has been to several Hogwarts feasts, but never one quite like this. Everybody was in their pajamas, and the celebration lasted all night. Harry didn't know whether the best bit was Hermione running toward him screaming, "You solved it! You solved it!" or Justin hurrying over him, the Hufflepuff table to ring us in and apologize endlessly for suspecting him. Or Hagrid turning up at 3:30, cuffing Harry and Ron so hard on the shoulder they were knocked into the plate of the ship, or his and Ron 400 boys cheering Ron for the House Cup for the second years running, or Professor McGonagall standing up to tell them that their exam had been cancelled as a school treat. "Oh no," said Hermione, or Dumbledore announcing that unfortunately Professor Locker would be unable to return next year, owing to the fact that he needed to go away and get his memory back. Quite a few of the teachers joined in cheering that greeted this new shame, said Ron, helping himself to jam donut. He was starting to grow on me. The rest of the summer term passed in a haze of blazing sunshine. Hogwarts was back into normal, with only a few small differences. A difference against a dog art classes were cancelled, but we've had plenty of practice that anyway. Ron told disgruntled Hermione, and Lucius Malfoy had been sacked as a school governor. Draco was no longer straying around school as though he owned the places. On the contrary, he looked resentful and sulky. On the other hand, Ginny Weasley was perfectly happy again. Too soon. It was time for the journey home for the Hogwarts Express. Harry, Ron, Hermione, Fred, George, and Ginny got a compartment to themselves. They made the most of their time last few hours, which they that they were allowed to do magic before the holiday. They played exploding snaps set off the very last of Fred and George filibuster firework and practiced disarming each other by magic. Harry was getting very good at it. They were almost at King Cross when Harry remembered something. "Ginny, what did you see Percy doing that he didn't want to tell anyone?" "Oh, that," said Ginny, giggling. "Well, Percy got a girlfriend." Fred dropped a stack of books on George's head. "What? It's that Ravenclaw perfect Penelope Clearwater," said Ginny. "That's he was writing to all summer. He's been meeting her all over the school in secret. I walked in M&M's sitting in an empty classroom one day. He was so upset when she was, attacked. You won't tease him, will you?" she added anxiously. "Wouldn't dream of it," said Fred, who was looking as if his birthday had come early. "Definitely not," said George, sniggering. The Hogwarts Express slowed and finally stopped. Harry pulled out his quill and a bit of parchment and turned up to Ron and Hermione. This is a telephone number," he told Ron, scribbling it twice, tearing the parchment and handing it to them. "I told your dad how to use a telephone last summer." "Well, no. Call me at the Dursley, okay? I can send another 2-month with only Dudley to talk to. Your aunt and uncle will be proud, though, won't they?" said Hermione as they got off the train and joined the crowd thronging toward the enchanted barrier. "When they hear what you did this year?" "Proud?" said Harry. "Are you mad? All those time I could have died and didn't manage it. They'll be furious." And together they walked back through the gateway to the Muggle world.